Today on the Save Gen Z, I interview MPP Goldie Ghamari.
The reason I became a politician is the same reason that I went to law school and became a lawyer. I wanted to help people. Every social media platform has its own target audience, and so for me, TikTok is a way for me to communicate with the next generation of Canadians, to show them not just what it means to be a politician, but what it means to be a conservative. When the left talks about diversity, they're usually just talking about diversity of appearance. But when it comes to conservative, we talk about diversity of opinion. And so we have a really big blue tent, and there's a space for everyone in that tent.
Hi and welcome. Goldie Ghamari is the MPP for Carleton, but she is not your typical conservative politician. This young millennial lawyer has been getting a lot of attention lately due to her presence on social media, especially on TikTok, where she now has over 27,000 followers. And today I have the absolute privilege of being able to interview her, so stay tuned. Before we get started with our interview, please subscribe if you haven't already and consider hitting that notification bell. So Goldie, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So how about we start off with you telling us a bit about yourself and why you are a conservative?
Sure. So I wasn't really politically involved when I was younger, just because my parents immigrated here from Iran in 1986. I was a year old. So growing up, didn't really get too much involved in politics because of the fact that, there's the political situation in Iran is different. And I never really thought about being a politician or didn't really, know what the steps were. The reason I became a politician is the same reason that I went to law school and became a lawyer. I wanted to help people. And it was interesting because when I was articling at Lang Michener, there was a lawyer there called Manny Montenegrino. And Manny actually used to be the lawyer for Stephen Harper back when Prime Minister Harper was running for leadership and then became Prime Minister of Canada. So I met him and we kind of stayed in touch. And about a year or so after I was practicing law, we connected, and I told him, I kind of want to help people and get more involved. And then, he suggested I get involved in politics and connected me to a few people. And then, that was the rest. And I guess the reason I really became a conservative is actually when John Baird and Prime Minister Harper shut down the Iranian embassy, because that was the first time I felt like government actually understood me and understood our situation. Yeah. And then looked more into it and dove deeper. I realized, wow, conservative values are my values as well.
For sure. That's a really nice story. It's not just, I was born in a conservative household. My dad was a politician. I'm a politician. It seems like you found yourself.
I'm actually the first person in my family to go to law school and be a lawyer. And I'm the first person in my family to run even. And it wasn't like we grew up in a political household. So, when you're talking about sort of the Canadian dream and the fact in a democracy, anyone can do anything as long as they apply themselves to it. Like, I'm a perfect example of that because I had no connections, no background. No one in my family was in politics. I mean, I didn't even know what it was to be a member of a party until I decided to get involved. So like all of that.
That's really cool. So in the 2018 election campaign, you were very successful at getting young conservatives to volunteer for you. So what did you do to attract so many youth to your campaign?
So it's interesting. My riding in Ottawa, it's Carleton, and it's the biggest riding. It's geographically, it's actually larger than the city of Toronto. It takes 1 hour to get one corner to the other. And a lot of the interns obviously were working at Parliament Hill. And so for them to make the drive out to Carleton, it was actually a bit of a drive, like at least I would say 45 minutes to an hour because of traffic. And because it was so far out, there was hesitation. So I remember the first time we sort of scheduled a group canvas, I think no one came. And then the second time we scheduled a group canvas, about 6 people came. And they came because I paid for their Uber or got them a driver or whatever. And then after, we canvassed for 3 hours only. And then afterwards, I took them to a local pub, and I told them, get whatever you want on the menu. Obviously not alcohol because I'm not going to pay for that. But in terms of food, I said, you guys have worked hard all day, and now you've come out canvassing for 3 hours, so get whatever you want. And then word spread, and then the next time I had a super canvas, we were supposed to have 10 people, we actually had 30, and then so on and so forth. So I think. It wasn't really about the food. It was more about respect, and it was about appreciation. I've also volunteered on a lot of campaigns. And, after working all day, 9 to 5 or 8 to 6 or whatever it is, and then going out campaigning, just being given pizza all the time or fried chicken or whatever, so I decided on my campaign, the way I would spend the most money on food for volunteers, just as appreciation. And we had fun, and I was always respectful, and it just worked out.
That's good. And you kind of make me want to join your campaign now, because I remember eating a lot of McDonald's during the 2018 election campaign.
Yeah,
so
no, I made sure wherever we campaigned, I would find a local restaurant there, and then we would all go there after. And it was just a nice way to socialize.
That's really nice.
Yeah,
like so support local business. It's
and it was funny
strong messages of Doug Ford.
Yeah, and it was funny because word spread, and then it got to a point where all the canvassers and interns wanted to come to Carleton, so they actually had to be diverted to other ridings because they just wanted to come to Carleton.
That's incredible.
It was I missed them all.
Yeah. So let's talk about your TikToks now, which are amazing, by the way. I'm not a big fan of TikTok, but I love yours. Yours just make me laugh so much. What made you decide to get on TikTok, and how much time does it take you to do a TikTok?
So I think what made me decide to get on TikTok was just the quarantine. I'd heard about TikTok. I had no idea what it was. So I was bored one day, and my sister was sending me a few videos. So I was like, oh, this is cool. This is interesting. So I just started, I made an account, and I just started following things, and it was just interesting. And I've always been sort of creative, I guess, in a way. So even in my undergrad, I majored in political science, but I did get I took a lot of theater as well. So I've always had a creative side to me. And, when I was younger, one of my dreams was to become a film director or something, which never happened. But I've always had that creative element. So I was looking at these TikTok videos that other people are making, and I thought, how can I adapt this to politics? And I'm 35. I consider myself an elder millennial. So I'm from the days of MySpace and ICQ and MSN. But if Gen Z does not forget this, and I hope you guys don't, but millennials, we're the ones who started the memes. We're the ones who started making the auto-tune videos and all that from way back in the day. So all of those old school memes and everything you can think of, I know all of them. So, and TikTok is basically memes. It's like taking a popular song and, creating a running joke, and then everyone does it. So I just took that and I adapted it to politics, and the next thing I knew, people found it funny. So I went from, it was funny, the video that went viral, it has 1.4 million views now. And wow. I went from 12, so when I posted that video, I had 12 followers, and within a week, I had 24,000 followers.
Wow. Incredible.
I'm at 27,000 followers now.
Yeah, that's great. That's awesome. So I'm going to ask you a question now about a TikTok that you made back in May. It was a Q&A.
What's up with the Canadian flag?
I'm Canadian. Sorry?
What do you do?
I don't know.
How often do you lie? So what essential worker did you hire? Have you been bought out by the lobbyists yet?
No.
What's the link to your OnlyFans though?
What's OnlyFans? Wait, let me look it up. Launched in 2016, OnlyFans is a subscription-based social media platform where users can sell and or purchase original content, typically of the...
You was at the club, bottoms up when I first met you, couldn't get enough, had to get you straight to my...
So a guy asked you about OnlyFans, which is, an amateur porn site. Now you know what it is. In some ways, this question is, inappropriate and sexist.
Oh, yeah.
But, instead of, denouncing it or ignore it, you gave a genuine human reaction, which, kind of allowed us to relate to this is what dealing with these types of incidents feels like. So what made you decide to react in that manner?
So, I mean, people have called me names, even like from before I was elected. And I've always, it's a reality for all politicians. They'll be targeted, they'll be attacked. And the reality for women is that, you have to deal with a lot of misogynistic comments. And, it seems strange, like you're a politician and you're posting videos and they're just normal videos. Like I'm not wearing anything inappropriate or, I'm not doing like any sexy dances or whatever. It's just a combination. Yeah, they're a combination of politics and fun. And yet you still see these comments there. And I think it's just a lot of people don't realize that they're dealing with another human being. Whether it's on TikTok or whether it's Twitter or whether it's, people making these really rude allegations or accusations about me based on, the country I was born or what I look like and all that. You have to have thick skin in politics and it's always better to deal with this, instead of like being angry, it's always an opportunity to educate and show people behavior is wrong. So, I reacted to that with humor because I thought that would sort of get the message across in a more positive way, as opposed to, being angry about it or whatever the case might be. Because especially for young women, if and when they do get involved in politics, it's just the reality of what you have to deal with. And, if you educate people, as opposed to being angry, I think that will go a long way to changing that. So that's why I think it's always better to react to inappropriate messages or negative messages with positivity, because, as a leader, I think it's important to lead by example. So yeah.
No, totally. And you just look really cool and strong when you did that, because you're not like letting your feelings get in the way. You're like, you brush it off. It's like, I'm not going to let this define who I am. I thought that was good. Just a quick question. You talked about those allegations. And the first time I heard of you, it was that Rebel Media, article on that.
That's exactly what I was referring to. Apparently, I'm a secret terrorist.
So you had nothing to do with that, right? Go good. No, I felt kind of bad for you. It must suck. You get a nomination, and then the first thing you have is somebody's trying to slander you as like, a pro Sharia, a liberal candidate. That must have like sucked.
So those allegations actually came out before the nomination. And it was like sent to every single news media source. And I mean, you can publish this, I don't care. Those allegations came out before the nomination. And, it was some generic email, like it wasn't even like a real person, fake email or whatever, sent it to every single media outlet before the nomination, and no one picked it up because any reputable news source who looked at it just realized how ridiculous it actually is. Anything, you know, the email was also sent to like everyone in the riding. And at first I was really concerned. I was like, oh my gosh, like what is this? What's going to happen to me? But the fact is, when the email was sent out, and you know, people who were on the fence about me or didn't even know anything about me, as soon as they saw that, they were so offended and they were just so disgusted by the contents that it actually helped me get more support. Because again, instead of dealing with that with anger or fighting back, I just chose to ignore it. I chose to take the high road based on what my mentor said to me. And, you know, in the end, it worked out, because the reality is, when you become, you know, before you become an official candidate to run for a nomination, the party has to vet you. So I was already vetted way before that. You know, I had to give them all of my information. They had to do, you know, back checks on me, security checks on me, you know, social media, everything. So the party had already vetted me well before then. So they knew. And it's interesting because even that like Facebook page that they attributed to me, when I went to look at that, it was a language that I don't speak. And I just did a Google Translate, and apparently it's like Algerian. So, I mean, I'm Farsi. I speak like, I'm Persian. I speak Farsi, not Algerian. So it wasn't even the same language as what I speak.
Wow.
So. But it's always like you take the high road. You ignore the negativity. And I think ultimately what really made me successful, whether it's that or anything else, is it doesn't matter what people say about you, as long as you're in it for the right reasons, and as long as you are getting involved because you want to make a difference and you want to help. That's all that matters. And, you know, your actions speak louder than words.
That's actually amazing. I will put that on the interview, because those are very good words. Now, some people have criticized you for using TikTok, stating that it's, you know, unprofessional or a waste of time. Some people even accused you of wasting taxpayer dollars on this. So, like, what do you have to say to that?
You know, there's always going to be critics. You're always going to have people who criticize you, no matter what it is you're doing. That's just the reality of politics. Again, I mean, anyone who thinks TikTok is a waste of time, I just think maybe doesn't understand the reasoning behind it. I mean, it's not like I spend all day making TikToks. Like, I also have other social media accounts. You know, I do a weekly radio interview on that local Persian radio show. You know, I do constit work. I do work at Queen's Park. I just, you know, in my spare time, I just happen to instead of, let's say, binge watching Netflix or whatever, I like to be on TikTok and make videos, because for me, that's just another way of youth outreach, right? Like, every social media platform has its own target audience. And so for me, TikTok is a way for me to communicate with the next generation of Canadians, to show them not just what it means to be a politician, but what it means to be a conservative. Because I feel like there's a lot of, you know, the other parties seem to have a good stronghold on social media, and, you know, we as conservatives have always been a little bit behind. So for me, I really view it as youth outreach and as just communicating with people, letting them know that, you know, I'm a real human being, and, you know, don't listen to what other people say. I mean, not all conservatives are, you know, old and, you know, white hair or whatever the case might be. Like, conservatives come in all, you know, ages and, you know, backgrounds and diversity. So, you know, just be informed. And so for me, I kind of view myself as an ambassador for the next generation.
It's really good. And you make such a good point. You are so different from your stereotypical, you know, old white conservative politician. You are, you know, the way you like, your personality and the way that you do this job is so refreshing, and it gives me a lot of hope for youth outreach and to help reelect Doug Ford in 2022.
Thank you. And it's interesting because, you know, just one thing I want to comment on. So, you know, when I was running, not just for the nomination, but also for the election, Conservatives never once cared about what I looked like or my background. The only time my appearance or even my gender ever came up was when it was like a Liberal or NDP or someone at the door, like, you know, I'd be door knocking and I'd say I'm running. And then, you know, it would be like a lady or, you know, whoever. And they'd be like, oh, are you running for Liberal or NDP? And I'd say, actually, I'm running for Conservative. Why would you think that I'm running for Liberal or NDP?
Yeah.
Put them on the spot, right? Because in their minds, they're like, oh, young lawyer, visible minority woman, she must be left, you know, on the left side. And when I would call them out on it, they would just say, oh, I don't know. But you know what? It's so refreshing to see a young woman from a visible minority running for the Conservatives. Good for you. And to me, that was actually more insulting than anything else, because in my head, I'm like, you know nothing about me. You have no idea what my background is or what my qualifications are, but all you can think of is good for me for running because I'm a visible minority woman. Whereas Conservatives never cared what I looked like. They were always, you're running, cool. What are your qualifications and what can you do for me? And I think that's also part of dealing with the whole message of, you know, institutionalized discrimination is really have to normalize the fact that anyone can run, and don't run on your appearance or on your gender or whatever the case might be. Run on your qualifications. And, you know, that's what I did.
That's incredible. And I totally agree too. I'm not a fan of identity politics. I think, you know, gender and racial quotas are a new form of racism. You assume that certain people need help to get somewhere. So I'm totally with you on that. And it's interesting that you brought up race, because that leads into my next question. So there are a lot of, you know, discussions right now about, you know, the issue of racism in our communities. In your view, how can we best work towards a more fair and equal society?
I think, you know, if you want to make a difference, you get involved. You know, I wanted to make a difference, so I got involved. I mean, I could easily be out there protesting or marching or whatever the case might be, but ultimately, like, if you want to affect change, find out the best way to do it and get involved. So my message to everyone is, if you want to bring about change, don't be afraid to get involved, whether it's as a volunteer or a campaign manager or a staffer, or even running for office. And it doesn't have to be provincial. It could be, you know, municipal, it could be school board trustee, you know, anything. There are so many opportunities out there. And I think it's so important that if someone wants to change the conversation to your appearance or, you know, your background or your ethnicity or religion, always like steer them back to, okay, that's fine, but here's who I am as a person, and these are my qualifications, and this is why you should vote for me. And I think once we normalize that, then I think that's where we can really see, you know, some positive changes.
That's very good, and that's for sure. I mean, you can protest all day, or you can actually get involved. I don't like to complain. I like to do something, and that's why I myself involved in politics.
Yeah, and I mean, not to say like protesting is bad. I mean, obviously we're a democracy, and I think protest is also important, and that's
for sure.
But protest,
you got to take it a step further too, right? You can't just only protest. You got to like take it a step further and get involved, meet with people. And
exactly. Like you can show your protests in other ways as well, and you can get involved in other ways as well. So, you know, protesting is so important, but again, you know, do something else as well. Like get involved in the conversation, you know, make space, you know, the same way that I did and the same way that, you know, anyone can if they work hard and they apply themselves.
Very true. So lastly, in your view, what does the future of conservatism look like in Canada?
Well, the future of conservatism looks like the next generation, right? I mean, it looks like, you know, people like you and me, I think. And I think the conversation about conservatism is really changing. The one thing that's really nice about our party is that, you know, when the left talks about diversity, they're usually just talking about diversity of appearance. But when it comes to conservatism, we talk about diversity of opinion. And so we have a really big blue tent, and there's a space for everyone in that tent, you know, whether you're fiscal conservative or social conservative or libertarian or whatever the case may be, right? So I think that's what's really important, because ultimately, in a democracy, everyone should have a say, and in a democracy, everyone's views should be heard. So I think the future of conservatism is bright, because we have a lot of young people who are involved, and more and more people are understanding what it means to be a conservative. And it's not just the media likes to portray, or the left try to portray a certain type of image, but that's not the case, and I think people are seeing that now.
Yeah, totally. And you're right, a big blue tent, I'm a social conservative, and I've had fiscal, progressive conservatives on my show. I like to have everyone on my show, and we all respect each other, because the core belief, we might disagree on certain issues, but we all believe in respect. And that's crucial for a successful, united conservative movement in Canada.
Absolutely.
All right, well, Goldie, I want to thank you for taking some time today to come and discuss with me. And I hope to see you again soon in the near future.
Before you go, you need to see my latest TikTok video, because I want your reaction on this.
All right. Let's
Spartans! Right, what is your profession?
What'd you think?
That's hilarious. I love this one too, the one you made, like, I don't know, this one here.
Yeah.
I hope that you enjoyed this interview, and I hope you had a good laugh, because I sure did. This was probably the funnest interview I have done yet. If you did like it and you did laugh, make sure to give it a thumbs up and a comment below. To learn more about Goldie Ghamari, check the link to her website and the link to her TikTok in the bio. Make sure also to subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you, and God bless you.